Mexican cuisine. The foundation is the milpa, the ancient intercropping system of corn, beans, and squash grown together so each crop supports the others. The defining staple is corn, treated through a process called nixtamalization, in which dried kernels are simmered in an alkaline solution of slaked lime water. The corn becomes more nutritious, easier to grind, and capable of forming the dough called masa. From masa come the tortilla, the tamal wrapped in corn husk or banana leaf and steamed, the gordita split and stuffed, the soap with raised edges holding the filling in, the tlacoyo stuffed with beans before cooking, and the huarache, named for the sandal it resembles. Tacos are the best known format internationally. The fillings change with region, season, and time of day. Carne asada in the north, cochinita pibil in the Yucatan, fish tacos along the Baja coast, in Mexico City suadero with beef brisket, lengua with beef tongue, and tripa with tripe. The country still grows hundreds of native corn varieties in colors from white to deep blue and purple, sold by hand in traditional markets. Salsas in red and green, made from tomato, tomatillo, and chili, accompany almost every meal. And guacamole, mashed avocado with lime, salt, onion, cilantro, and chili, is now one of Mexico's most internationally recognized dishes. Sauces are the other half of Mexican cooking. Mole is not one sauce but a whole family of them. Complex slow-cooked blends of chili, seed, nut, spice, fruit, and sometimes chocolate that can carry over 30 ingredients. Mole poblano from Puebla is the most internationally known, a deep brown sauce served over turkey or chicken. Mole negro from Oaxaca is darker and smokier, made from charred chilies and sometimes chocolate. Mole verde is based on green herbs and pumpkin seed. Enchiladas, rolled tortillas filled and bathed in sauce, take the local form. Mole, verdes, or suizas with cream. The stews and braises of Mexico cover the rest. Pozole, a hominy soup of slow-cooked pork or chicken topped with shredded cabbage, radish, lime, and oregano, is the dish of celebration. Birria, originating in Jalisco, is a slow-stewed goat or beef and chili, eaten as a soup or pulled into tacos that are dipped back into the broth. Carnitas from Michoacan is pork slow-cooked in its own fat until tender and crisp at the edges, served shredded in tortillas. Barbacoa is lamb or goat steamed for hours in maguey leaves underground, served on Sundays in central Mexico. One of Mexico's favorite hangover cures is menudo, though the dish varies significantly by region. In the northern states, it is made with a red chili broth and hominy, and is the version most associated with the name internationally. In central Mexico, the same soup is called pancita, made with red broth and beef stomach or lamb, but without hominy. In southern Mexico and the Yucatan, the equivalent is mondongo, a vegetable-heavy version with potatoes, carrots, and regional spices including cilantro and mint. Chiles rellenos, poblano chilies stuffed with cheese or meat, battered and fried, are a classic. Chile en nogada, a green poblano stuffed with picadillo and topped with white walnut cream sauce and red pomegranate seeds, carries the colors of the Mexican flag. Street food in Mexico is its own world. Tacos al pastor, created in Mexico City by Lebanese immigrants who adapted the vertical spit of shawarma to local ingredients, stacking pork seasoned with chili and achiote, served with pineapple, onion, and cilantro on small tortillas. Elote, corn on the cob with mayonnaise, cheese, chili, and lime, is everywhere. So is esquites, a corn salad. Tlayuda, a large crisp tortilla from Oaxaca topped with beans. Asiento, unrefined pork lard. Meat, cheese, and avocado, is a regional specialty growing in international recognition. Tortas, sandwiches stacked on a soft white roll called bolillo, are a Mexico City staple. Quesadillas fold around melted cheese and sometimes squash blossoms, mushrooms, or the corn fungus huitlacoche. Chilaquiles, fried tortilla chips simmered in salsa with crema, cheese, and a fried egg, are Mexico's defining breakfast. For sweets, tres leches cake, sponge cake, soaked in evaporated, condensed, and whole milk, is eaten across Mexico and Latin America, and is one of the desserts from this region that has gained the most international recognition and is made all over the world. Regional cuisines vary widely. The Yucatan cooks Mayan-rooted dishes that lean on achiote, sour orange, and habanero chili, distinct from the rest of the country. In Oaxaca, 7 different varieties of mole are drizzled over traditional Mexican dishes. Chapulines, roasted grasshoppers, and tasajo, thinly sliced, cured beef grilled over charcoal, are also staples of the local cuisine. The northern states cook more wheat than corn, producing the flour tortilla and everything that comes out of it. Machaca, dried shredded beef, rehydrated and scrambled with eggs, and the burrito, a northern Mexican invention that took its current form along the US border. In traditional Mexican cuisine, burritos are simpler and often contain fewer ingredients, such as just meat, beans, or potatoes, and are typically smaller. The larger, more elaborate burritos with multiple fillings are more characteristic of Tex-Mex or Americanized Mexican cuisine. The Gulf Coast around Veracruz blends Spanish, African, and Caribbean influence into seafood dishes like huachinango a la veracruzana, red snapper in tomato sauce with olives, capers, and chili. Mexican drinks begin with the agave plant. Mezcal is the older distilled spirit, smoky and varied, made from any of dozens of agave species. Tequila is a related agave spirit, made specifically from blue agave in a defined region around Jalisco. The margarita, tequila with lime juice and orange liqueur served in a salt-rimmed glass, is the most internationally exported tequila cocktail. Non-alcoholic drinks include horchata with rice and cinnamon, agua de Jamaica, a hibiscus drink, tepache, a fermented pineapple drink, and atole, a warm, masa-based drink which becomes champorado when flavored with chocolate. Café de olla, coffee brewed in a clay pot with cinnamon and the unrefined cane sugar piloncillo, is the traditional Mexican coffee. The michelada, a beer cocktail with lime, salt, hot sauce, and Worcestershire, is the everyday meal drink. United States cuisine. There is no single American cuisine. There are dozens of regional ones, plus a fast food industry that became one of the country's most exported cultural products. A handful of dishes belong to no single region and stand for American food as a whole. The American hamburger, claimed by several towns as its place of origin, became the country's most recognizable food and the seed of a global fast food industry. The American hot dog in its everyday form, a steamed or grilled frankfurter in a soft bun with mustard or ketchup, is the food of baseball games and Coney Island. Apple pie, often cited as the most American of desserts, traces from English colonial baking. Thanksgiving turkey, roasted whole with stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, and gravy, is the centerpiece of America's most important family meal. American breakfast holds its own canon. Pancakes stacked with butter and maple syrup, waffles and bacon and eggs with hash browns and toast define the diner morning. Donuts range from the coffee and donut tradition of Dunkin' to the glazed yeast rings of Krispy Kreme. African contributions shaped the cooking of the South. Okra, black-eyed peas, gumbo, the use of rice in the Carolina Low Country, and the smoking techniques that became American barbecue. Barbecue is the most regionalized of American foods. Texas brisket is rubbed with salt and pepper, smoked for 12 hours or more over post oak. Memphis barbecue is dry rubbed ribs and pulled pork sandwiches with coleslaw on the bun. Kansas City barbecue uses a thick, sweet tomato and molasses sauce on a wider range of meats. North Carolina barbecue divides between Eastern whole hog with vinegar pepper sauce and Western pork shoulder with a thinner tomato-based vinegar sauce. Soul food, developed by Black Americans from the cooking of enslaved ancestors in the South, with strongest roots in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Louisiana, includes fried chicken, collard greens with smoked pork, black-eyed peas, cornbread, macaroni and cheese, and chitterlings, simmered pork intestines. Grits, coarse ground corn boiled into a thick porridge, are considered an absolute staple on Southern tables. Louisiana cooks in two related styles, Cajun and Creole. Cajun is the country cooking of French settlers who were exiled from Canada and made a home in the bayous. Creole is the city cooking of New Orleans, where French, Spanish, African, and indigenous hands worked in the same kitchens. Gumbo is a thick stew of dark roux, and the trinity, the Cajun and Creole base, of onion, celery, and bell pepper. Jambalaya is rice with meat cooked into the grain, and po' boys, short for poor boy, are sandwiches on crusty French bread with fried seafood. Beignets, square, deep-fried pastries dusted heavily with powdered sugar, are New Orleans' signature sweet, most famously served at Café du Monde. For dessert, the South has key lime pie, a custard tart of Florida Keys limes, sweetened condensed milk, and egg yolks in a graham cracker crust. Peach cobbler is baked sweet peaches under a thick biscuit or batter crust. Banana pudding layers, vanilla custard, sliced banana, and soft vanilla wafers. Pecan pie sets pecans into a filling of eggs, butter, sugar, and syrup in a pie crust, and is a fixture of holiday tables. Mississippi mud pie is a dense chocolate dessert of a chocolate crust under a brownie layer, chocolate pudding, and whipped cream, named for its resemblance to the muddy banks of the Mississippi River. Chess pie, which has nothing to do with chess, is a southern-style custard pie made with butter, buttermilk, and cornmeal. Moving west from the South, in Texas and the Southwest, Mexican and American cooking met. Tex-Mex, distinct from Mexican food and developed by Mexican Americans in Texas, produced the fajita, the hard-shell taco, chili con carne, and the U.S. form of the enchilada, typically built with yellow cheddar, ground beef, and a thick chili gravy. This differs from the Mexican original, which uses fresh white cheese like queso fresco, shredded meat, and lighter regional sauces. The Southwest covers New Mexico, Arizona, southern Colorado, and West Texas. The region carries New Mexican cooking, defined by red and green chili sauces of the Hatch Valley, served on enchiladas, pozole, and breakfast burritos. Further north, The Midwest built its food around Chicago and the Great Lakes. Chicago-style food includes the deep dish pizza of cast-iron pan construction and the Chicago hot dog, a poppy seed bun loaded with mustard, onion, sweet relish, tomato, pickle, sport peppers, and celery salt, never ketchup. Wisconsin runs on dairy, producing much of the country's cheese, alongside the bratwurst and beer of its German settlers. Minneapolis claims the Juicy Lucy, a burger with the cheese sealed inside the patty. In Michigan's Upper Peninsula, the pasty, a filled pastry turnover, is an iconic cultural staple and a symbol of working-class history. In the Northeast, the cities built their own canon. Philadelphia built food like the cheesesteak, thin sliced beef and melted cheese on a long roll. The hoagie, a long roll filled with Italian cold cuts, cheese, lettuce, tomato, and oil, is the city's signature sandwich. Stromboli is a roll of Italian bread dough stuffed with meats, cheese, and peppers. And water ice, pronounced wooder ice, in Philadelphia, is a dessert of water, sugar, and fruit brought by Italian immigrants. The Reuben sandwich, bagels with lox, pastrami on rye, and the black and white cookie came from Eastern European Jewish delicatessens, mostly in New York City. New York cheesecake, dense and rich, made with cream cheese on a graham cracker base, is the city's signature dessert. Buffalo wings, fried wings in cayenne hot sauce, and butter served with celery and blue cheese dip were invented at Buffalo's Anchor Bar. Italian-American food produced spaghetti and meatballs, chicken parmesan, baked ziti, and the New York pizza, all dishes that exist in this form because of how Italian immigrants adapted to American ingredients. New Haven, Connecticut, holds its own coal-fired pizza tradition, known locally as Arby's, with the white clam pie as its signature. North of the city, New England holds America's deepest seafood tradition. Clam chowder in the New England white and Manhattan red versions, lobster rolls of chilled meat with mayonnaise in Maine style or warm with butter in Connecticut style, and Boston baked beans with molasses and salt pork. Across the country, on the Pacific coast, the West built its food on immigration and produce. Chinese-American cooking began in San Francisco during the gold rush and later in New York's Chinatowns. It gave the country General Tso's chicken, chop suey, and the dishes like beef and broccoli, orange chicken, and the takeout box itself. The famous fortune cookie came from Japanese-American confectioners. North, along the same coast, the Pacific Northwest serves wild Pacific salmon, sockeye king, coho, often cedar-planked or smoked, and Dungeness crab. The cold inland bays of Puget Sound and Hood Canal produce Olympia oysters, named for the town of Olympia at the southern tip of Puget Sound, and the giant geoduck clam. Oregon contributes Marionberry pie, hazelnuts, and the cheese of Tillamook. Back south, California cuisine, formalized in the 1970s at Chez Panisse in Berkeley by Alice Waters, produced the farm-to-table approach with daily changing menus and local seasonal sourcing. Cobb salad came from the Hollywood Brown Derby. The California roll, an inside-out maki with avocado and crab, came out of Los Angeles. The French dip sandwich is claimed by two competing LA restaurants, Felipe's and Cole's. San Francisco gave sourdough bread during the California Gold Rush Cioppino and the Mission Burrito. Canadian cuisine. Its food culture is made of three overlapping traditions: Indigenous, French-Canadian, and the cooking of more recent immigrant communities, particularly British, Italian, Greek, Eastern European, South Asian, Chinese, and Caribbean. The defining symbol of Canada is maple syrup, tapped from sugar maple trees mostly in Quebec, which produces over 70% of the world's supply. In the middle of the maple forest stand the sugar shacks, small wooden huts built for making maple syrup. A typical ritual is the tia d'érable. Hot maple syrup is poured onto packed snow and wound around a stick to form a chewy caramel. Quebec holds the deepest regional tradition. Poutine, hot French fries topped with fresh cheese curds and brown gravy, originated in rural Quebec in the 1950s, became the country's most internationally known dish. Tourtière, a meat pie of pork sometimes mixed with veal or game, spiced with cinnamon and clove, is the traditional Christmas Eve meal. Pâté chinois, the Quebec version of shepherd's pie, layers ground beef, corn, and mashed potato in that order. Pea soup with ham, sweetened with maple sugar in some households, dates to the earliest French settlements. Montreal holds two of the country's most exported foods: Montreal-style bagels, smaller and sweeter than the New York version and baked in wood-fired ovens, and Montreal smoked meat, brisket cured and steamed in the Eastern European deli tradition, served piled on rye. East of Quebec, the four Atlantic provinces of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland holds two settler cultures side by side. The French who came first built farming and fishing communities they called Acadia and settled more in New Brunswick and pockets of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, where Acadian cooking still lives, and contribute rappie pie, a baked dish of grated potatoes squeezed dry and layered with chicken, and fricot, a hearty Acadian stew of meat or fish with potatoes, onions, and dumplings. English and Irish settlers shaped the rest of the Atlantic provinces, with Newfoundland drawn almost entirely from England and Ireland. They run on the sea harvest. Cod, lobster, scallops, and salted beef, known as salt beef, served in Newfoundland as part of Jig's dinner with cabbage and root vegetables. Newfoundland also has fish and bruise, a dish of salt cod and hard bread soaked overnight. West of Quebec, Ontario, and the Niagara Peninsula produce wine, butter tarts, and pea meal bacon, a wet-cured pork loin rolled in cornmeal that defines Toronto sandwiches. Three Sisters agriculture, the corn bean squash polyculture of the Haudenosaunee, sits at the center of much indigenous cooking in this eastern part of the country. Further west, the prairie provinces grow most of the country's wheat and produce the Saskatoon berry pie and a heavy cattle ranching tradition. Bannock, a flat, quick bread of indigenous and Scottish heritage, is eaten across the country in many forms. On the Pacific coast, British Columbia carries Pacific salmon, oysters, Dungeness crab, and a deep Cantonese influence in Vancouver, which holds one of the most established Chinese culinary traditions outside Asia. The Nanaimo bar of British Columbia and beaver tails, fried dough flattened and sweetened, are among the country's better-known sweets. In the north, indigenous food remains central. Bison, caribou, muskox, and seal are eaten across the Arctic and subarctic, often in pemmican, a long-lasting concentrate of dried meat, fat, and berries developed by the Cree and Métis as a portable food and adopted by fur traders. Fry bread, wild rice, smoked salmon, and game stews appear across First Nations cuisines, each tied to local geography.